They made a Shrek Land. Okay, let me explain. So Universal Studios Singapore has an entire area of the theme park dedicated to Shrek called Far, Far Away, themed to the Beverly Hills Hollywood fantasy world from Shrek 2. The whole area is basically a Shrek fan's utopia, with rides, shows, meet and greets, merch, restaurants, and waffles. That's right, actual Shrek waffles. For those of you who weren't around when Shrek was omnipresent in the early 2000s, his face was stamped on any kind of merchandise you could think of, it might feel weird to have an entire Shrek-themed area of a theme park. And when Universal Studios Singapore opened in 2011, it might have felt like Shrek was starting to fade away from the pop culture limelight. But once you step into Far, Far Away, you're immediately reminded of why Shrek is so beloved in the first place. And I think this area celebrates the satirical comedy and fantasy storybook fun better than any other Shrek-based theme park rendition. This land doesn't have any high-speed thrills, and it's not doing anything with the latest high-tech innovations. However, this land is packed with fantastic scenic work, Easter eggs, and fan service with tons of options that if you're not careful, you could miss entire rides.
My name is Julia Prescott. I am a writer, director, an occasional producer, but most importantly, honorary captain of the Mark Twain riverboat at Disneyland.
How do you feel about the whole Universal Singapore?
I liked it more than I thought I would. I think that Universal Orlando is still king, especially because it's, I think, the only location internationally that has two parks. So you have those, and I guess now three with Epic. So you have that whole sort of compound to play off of each other. But as far as international goes, you know, I've only been to Japan and now Singapore. So Beijing is on my list, I guess, just to sort of catch them all. I would put Japan a little bit above Singapore, but they're really neck and neck. I liked it way more than I thought I would.
So if you've never been to Universal Studios Singapore before, it's truly a very bizarre place with lots of exclusive attractions. If Universal Studios Japan is the greatest hits park, and Hollywood is the entertainment capital of the world, Beijing is the newest and most technological, and Orlando is the massive epic resort destination, then Universal Studios Singapore feels like the oddball cousin. It's smaller, stranger, and full of surprises. While it does have some Universal staples like Minion Mayhem, Transformers, and Waterworld, it also has multiple attractions exclusive to Singapore, like this dueling coaster themed to Battlestar Galactica, Canopy Flyers, the Jurassic Park coaster that soars across the entire land for all ages to enjoy, and a Sesame Street dark ride with space and spaghetti. Another thing that Universal Studios Singapore does so well is taking staple attractions but then twisting it up and shaking up the concept. Jurassic Park River Adventure is now Jurassic Park Rapids Adventure, with more splashes and water than before, becoming a full water raft ride. Lights Camera Action takes the special effects showcase style of attractions like Disaster, Twister, or Backdraft and puts the audience in the middle of a hurricane hitting New York City. And Revenge of the Mummy, having a new storyline, different effects, and the coolest exterior facade for any attraction I've ever seen. And while Universal Singapore has multiple attractions that won't be rebuilt anywhere else anytime soon, it is very much the definition of a half-day park. You can do pretty much everything in a couple of hours. Also, Singapore is very hot. Super, super hot. You can see this by everyone carrying umbrellas around in most of the footage I could find. Do not go to Singapore in the middle of the summer like I did. Big mistake. This brings us to their Shrek Land Far, Far Away, which has most of the exclusive rides and experiences at Universal Singapore. Their biggest attraction is inside the Far, Far Away castle recreation, and it's, you guessed it, Shrek 4D, called Shrek 4D Adventure here. Shrek 4D was a big piece of the other Universal parks, but it never actually felt like a main attraction for any section or land. But the fact that Singapore put this much effort into a big Far, Far Away castle recreation outside, and then a fully built massive indoor queue of the castle for a 4D show is astonishing. And Shrek 4D isn't even the only show inside of Far, Far Away. Donkey Live is an interactive live show using digital puppetry for Donkey, similar to Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor and Turtle Talk with Crush at the Disney parks. It has a lot of interactivity, audience participation, dancing, and a lot more. And from time to time, there's a Puss in Boots outdoor show called Fortune Favors the Furry, and a Gingerbread Man show too. Enchanted Airways is the land's small kids coaster, but it's themed to dragon with guest appearances from Wolf, Pinocchio, and many other side characters. But the biggest coaster in the whole land, and maybe the standout attraction in all of Universal Singapore itself, is Puss in Boots' Giant Journey, which might be the most unique ride systems I've ever been on for a suspended coaster, where you're basically pushed up a spiral lift hill and go through show scenes in the first Puss in Boots spin-off movie. It's truly a wild and one-of-a-kind story coaster, and I'd like to see something kind of like this done multiple times in many theme parks. Now, the final ride inside of Far, Far Away, I'm gonna start calling it Shrek Land, by the way, is Magic Potion Spin, a flat ride Ferris wheel located entirely in the gift shop, themed to the fairy godmother's potion shop. Now, when I went to Universal Singapore, I knew about this secret Shrek gift shop ride, but it honestly took me about 15 minutes to actually find where it was. Now, normally this would be an issue, not having a lot of signage or a lot of directions onto where I'm supposed to go to find the ride, but something about a ride being so tucked away in the back of a gift shop that's kind of a big surprise when you find it. And it's just a flat ride, it's not trying to do anything too crazy. And I do dare any other theme park company to put a flat ride inside of your gift shop again.
Just the fact that there was like a castle moment in this park by way of Far, Far Away made it feel like it already felt really elevated because, of course, of like Disney castles and all of that. It just felt right in that way. The moment I walked in, you got Smash Mouth playing, you know, you got Shrek waffles wafting in the air, you got, you know, Puss in Boots walk around characters. It was a really magical moment. And then of course I spent 3 whole hours there. And so by the last hour I had heard somebody or whatever all-star from Smash Mouth, I think 5 times. You know, my enthusiasm waned a little bit, but you know, overall the experience was great. And I felt like where the theming most went was for their eateries.
All right, so let's talk about food. What kind of food did they have besides the waffles inside of Shrek Land? Now, in the movie Shrek 2, you might remember a scene where the fairy godmother stress eats eating fast food that's parodying the chain Bob's Big Boy Burgers, now parodied as Friar's Fat Boy. Now, this title for a restaurant doesn't translate well into different languages, and besides Americans, nobody wants to eat at a restaurant called Fat Boy. So instead, they just called it Friar's Good Food. Here they've got sandwiches, chicken, burgers, anything you'd think a Fantasy World style fast food restaurant would have. They also have a restaurant called Goldilocks, which is a fried chicken restaurant that has Baby Bear, Mama Bear, and Papa Bear sizes for all their food. The land also has meet and greets with Shrek and Fiona, both ogre and human versions of Fiona too. I've noticed how many parks overseas have way more costume variations on their characters than they do here in the States. And seeing Shrek fully decked out in Halloween, Christmas, and even Chinese New Year outfits is something you never get here in America, unfortunately. And also in Shrek Land, you can beat characters from How to Train Your Dragon. Don't go in here expecting something like the Toothless meet and greet at Epic Universe. It's not that elaborate. And yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense being in this part of the park, but hey, I'm all for more DreamWorks crossovers, so I'll let it pass. Now, this might not be the most elaborate theme park land of all time, and there are way more theme parks that have a lot more offerings and more stacked kind of attractions, but given the small scale of Universal Singapore and compared to all the other lands in the park, this one is easily my favorite and was the big standout of the entire park by a large margin. Now, at the beginning of this video, I proclaimed they made a Shrek Land like I was giving you impending vital news. But Singapore isn't even the only full Shrek Land in the world. Motion Gate Dubai has an indoor DreamWorks area separated into mini lands for different DreamWorks films. And for being all indoors, this Shrek Land has some great theming, brickwork, fun Easter eggs, a flat ride, and a dark ride with lots of animatronics retelling the plot of the first Shrek movie as a puppet show. And while this land is small, it is shocking how much they packed in here, and being dark and indoors convinces you that there isn't a massive dark ride hidden inside. Dreamworld Australia had their entire DreamWorks Experience Land with an entire mini land called Shrek's Fair Away, with multiple kid-friendly flat rides. London has the immersive experience Shrek's Adventure. There's an entire indoor DreamWorks water park in New Jersey with tons of Shrek theming. DreamWorks Land in Orlando has lots of Shrek, including his house, interactive spots, Shreksels, and a donkey meet and greet. And next year, Universal Kids Resort in Frisco, Texas is being built with an all-new Shrek area. But while there's been several renditions of Shrek done inside of theme parks, Universal Singapore seems to feel like the most fully complete experience out of any of the other renditions. What I love about Shrek Land in Singapore is just how much theming is all around you and how much of an extra length they went to make it feel fully immersive. Some of my favorite theming examples include a statue of the Frog King, which was Fiona's father, multiple signs for different fake businesses, like an in-universe IKEA called Thor. I love seeing the fairy godmother billboard from Shrek 2, the onion carriage from Shrek 2 and Shrek 4D, seeing Shrek's swamp house, different themed trash cans to Far Far Away, a kiosk for maps of the stars' homes inside of Far Far Away, a Kingdom Inquisitor tabloid box, a USPS Far Far Away mailbox, a horse carriage themed to be a taxi cab, even a fairy godmother pressed penny machine. All this to show what lengths they went to fully realizing and putting that much detail into a Shrek Land to make a full fantasy world Beverly Hills a reality. And if you still don't think they went that far, they took the famous Rodeo Drive sign for the most expensive street in Los Angeles and turned it into a fantasy world with Romeo Drive. So there's that much detail in here.
So outside of Shrek 4D, in like the queue area and both in like the exit area, they would have these, like world-specific bulletin boards of like job wanted kind of, flyer, all of those sort of like smaller things. That's something that I always enjoyed no matter what theme park I'm in, but typically Disney Universal is really keen for those kind of details of just like things that build out a world. And I don't know, I'm a screenwriter, so like I'm thinking about, especially in pitching movies and TV shows, like how can I get things feel very lived in? And, to bring in that audience experience to feel like they are a citizen of this world. So that kind of stuff I love. I think they also had a storefront that was like a, just a window, but it was like a post office and it had all of these like Shrek specific stamps that you could use. Now, I didn't test it out. I don't know if you can actually send a postcard or a letter or whatever from Far, Far Away like you can with Disneyland. But those sort of Easter eggs I thought were really, really cool.
Now, while this is super well done and it's a fantastic way to bring Shrek into theme parks, I've seen a lot of questioning recently about if Shrek is even relevant or not for modern audiences. For a lot of people, Shrek feels like a specific pop culture icon from a previous era. Winning the first Animated Picture Academy Award in 2001 to Shrek 2 being the highest grossing movie of 2004, it really feels like you could find Shrek being a big deal almost everywhere for a handful of years in the early 2000s. And now it feels like most people just know Shrek from the memes alone. But I do feel as if Shrek gets miscategorized for only being a satirical take on Disney and unfairly dealt in with a lot of the cynical pop culture of the early 2000s. The first two Shrek movies hold a special place for a lot of people my age, and rewatching the films, I've noticed just how much heart and emotion was there that I didn't realize as a kid. While there's truly millions of jokes in each movie that I catch a new one every rewatch, to starting the cultural impact of adding pop culture references, pop songs, and crude humor into family animated movies, a lot of the messages and themes of the Shrek movies have aged well, and a big reason that Gen Zers in that demographic fondly look back at this franchise. So when inevitably starting a theme park offering for Shrek, Universal just felt like the perfect match. Shrek never brought Universal that dreamlike happy Disney magic people want when they visit a Disney park, but it brought a fairy tale fantasy the Universal way. Shrek is more satirical, a little edgier than the competition, geared towards an older crowd, but still can be family friendly, has great theming, and a big focus on fun, just like Universal. And here we are decades after the films, and it feels like Shrek is going through a cultural renaissance at the moment. From Puss in Boots: The Last Wish nominated for an Oscar, Shrek 5 a few years away, and countless merch and viral sensations where Shrek has fully accepted his ironic meme status in the pop culture zeitgeist. But as Shrek may not have the same cultural relevance he did back in the early 2000s, there are still tons of fans of this franchise who mostly grew up with it who are now getting much older and still adore it. When I first walked through Shrek Land in Singapore for the first time, I was blown away in just how much detail it was in seeing things from the movies. Now that happens constantly in theme parks, recreating things that we've seen in TV shows or movies, but it helped me remember why I love Shrek in the first place.
The phenomenon of Shrek coming back is worthy of its own study, because when it first came out, it was meant to be this very irreverent meta take on like what that big Disney animated feature movie could be. It kind of set the tone for DreamWorks of being, irreverent and, like being pop culture savvy and, having that kind of like comedic tone sort of branded into what kind of stories that they would tell. But then it became this big phenomenon, and they did multiple movies. And then of course, like the movies don't come out for a minute, kids grow up, it kind of shapeshifts into what it needs to be. I forget exactly like what year this started, but all of a sudden the memes start, right? And then this Shrek rave comes up. The Shrek rave is my favorite kind of tomfoolery. It starts as this sort of ironic joy that brings this community of, extra youth together. And then, like anything, if you pretend to laugh, you're gonna start laughing. If you pretend to enjoy something, you're gonna start enjoying it. And I feel like that's really what has led this resurgence and this renaissance for Shrek. And now I feel like because of the Shrek raves, because of the meme culture, that's why we're getting another Shrek movie.
Now, many of the newer versions of Shrek in theme parks are focused more on DreamWorks animation as a whole, with Shrek being the main mascot of the group of characters. This is true for Motion Gate Dubai Land, DreamWorks Land in Universal Florida, and even the Universal Kids Resort coming soon. So going off of that, I would love to see Shrek play a big emphasis in some kind of new DreamWorks animation boat ride or dark ride, similar to Secret Life of Pets at Universal Studios Hollywood. It's always a fun mashup to see all the DreamWorks characters come together and interacting how they would normally. Especially for theme park lands that are already mashed up of DreamWorks characters, giving them one big ride together would be super fun. And doing a copy and paste of the Puss in Boots coaster someplace like the Universal Kids Resort or Universal Studios Orlando would be a great addition as well. And as much as I'd love to see a whole new Shrek Land added to Epic Universe or to the new Universal Great Britain park coming soon, this being so exclusive to Singapore just makes this park feel so much more unique, and I think it's awesome that we have a version of Shrek 4D that's permanent somewhere in the world. So, what about you? Have you been to Universal Singapore, and what do you think about their Shrek Land? And how can we best implement Shrek into new theme park editions? Comment down below and let me know. And remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more thoughts on Shrek and theme park design.